This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
They're coming. Judy, you'd better hide until Jeff and I make certain they weren't followed.
Slow down, Cornelius. It was somewhere along here. Look, on the road ahead.
Blue Eyes. Jeff.
We've been worried. Thank goodness you two are safe.
Hey, Ape fans! I am Richard Woloski, and I want to welcome everyone back to Talking Apes TV. And if you are a new listener, well, welcome to our Planet of the Apes podcast, where we reintroduce and break down the Ape TV series, the live-action series from 1974, and now the animated series titled Return to the Planet of the Apes from 1975. This was that great year that brought us the robot toy that not only spoke and sounded like a gremlin, but also played the advanced technology known as 8-track tapes. And we also saw a commercial for the world's greatest superhero dolls, a commercial that would never be made today. More on that later. Now, when talking about such an Urko-tastic universe, I wouldn't be able to do it alone. Here is my Talking Apes TV co-host, the Captain Kirk, to my General Urko. Everyone, please say hello to Mark Gushewitz. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Rich. I can't wait to find out what you mean by that commercial not being made today.
Oh, never. You know what? I don't even want to get into it right now, because that would be the whole show.
Right. Anyway, are you ready for another Urko-tastic show?
I'm always ready for another Urko-tastic show. I kind of missed not doing a recap episode last Talking Apes TV episode because we took a break and talked to Adam O'Brien and Ken Mills, which was a lot of fun, but I'm really excited to get back into the TV series now.
Right, but before we begin, earlier this week you were telling me some interesting things about the Return to the Planet of the Apes animation director Cullen Houghtaling. I'm not sure if I'm getting that right or not, and I apologize, to him if I'm getting it wrong.
It looks more to me like Houghtaling.
Houghtaling. Okay, Cullen Houghtaling.
Actually, it's Cullen Houghtaling. Cullen Houghtaling.
Okay, Cullen Houghtaling.
This kid must have gone through turmoil in school.
Scott Blaze.
Scott. That's the one.
Anyway, you were telling me some interesting things that I thought you might want to share with the listeners on this episode.
Yeah, Cullen Houghtaling, he had quite an extensive history in animated TV series. He was the animation director, like you just said, on Return to the Planet of the Apes, but he was also known really as a storyboard artist for cartoons I didn't even know were actual shows. Now, let's go through this list and see if you remembered watching or just hearing about any of these. Did you know there was a Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures in 1991?
Yes, I did.
You really?
Oh, yeah, I even remember watching it.
Bill and Ted. Bogus! Adventures most outstanding every day. It's outrageous, so bodacious. Help is always on the way.
Yeah, I didn't know that was an animated show.
Yeah, it sure was.
All right, how about this one? In 1989, there was an animated Karate Kid.
No, that one I did not know.
No, I think most of these just had one season, and there's no wonder why.
Well, what could you do with an animated Karate Kid? Like, he's up against a bully every week, and then he wins the fight at the end of the show every week?
And, surprisingly enough, he always does that crane kick move. And every week, it's like, why didn't we see this coming?
Bear went over mountain, bear went over mountain, bear went over mountain to see what he could see. Oh!
Mr. Miyagi, can we change the station, please? You've been singing The Bear Went Over the Mountain for 3 hours now.
Keep lungs in shape for hiking in thin mountain air.
Even going to conventions and looking through everyone's bootleg DVDs of animated shows from the 60s through the 90s, I've never seen any of these. Well, this one here was a series. It's the Police Academy, the series from 1988. Are you kidding me?
I think I remember something about that. It sounds familiar.
You and Jones let those thugs get away, Mahoney. One more screw-up like that, and you're both in deep trouble. Now get out there and find those creeps.
Excuse me, sir? I'd be happy to volunteer for parking meter duty.
Boy, that Jones is sure a stitch. I'll give you both something to laugh about if you don't get him down from there and get to work.
I know by this age I was kind of getting out of cartoons until 1985 when the Ewoks and Droids Adventure Hour came on, then I was back into cartoons, but I don't recall any of these. Now how about this one right over here? The Gary Coleman Show.
Yes, that one I remember.
You're lying.
No, I'm not. I was really, really big into Different Strokes in its early years. And I remember all the Gary Coleman movies, too. I don't think I could name any of them for you, but he had done a number of movies as well. So I was aware of the animated series.
Why am I blanking out on Gary Coleman movies?
How could you not know the Gary Coleman Show?
But an animated show?
Yeah.
Doesn't even ring any kind of nostalgic bell in my head.
What you talking about, Willis?
Now, one I do remember, and I recall loving this one, the Plastic Man Comedy Adventure Show.
From under the pages of DC Comics comes the world's newest and greatest superhero, Plastic Man. He can spring, he can stretch, he can fly, he can bounce, he can change his shape.
I used to roll on my green beanbag chair in 1979 watching this.
Yeah, that was one we watched every weekend as well.
Yeah, this was really funny because being a big Monkees fan and the Monkees always breaking the fourth wall, Plastic Man always broke the fourth wall. When something really ridiculous or stupid would happen, he'd look to the camera and give a dog, huh? Kind of a look. Really, really funny. And how about this one? Hong Kong Phooey.
Oh, that's one of my favorites. I have the DVDs.
All right, the best part about Hong Kong Phooey is the theme song.
Hong Kong Phooey, #1 super guy. Hong Kong Phooey, quicker than the human eye. He's got style, a groovy smile, and a mouth that just won't stop. When the going gets rough, he's super tough with a Hong Kong Phooey chop. Yeah! Hong Kong Phooey, #1 super guy. Hong Kong Phooey, quicker than the human eye. Tick-a-chong, tick-a-chong, tick-a-chong.
That was one of my all-time favorite animated series, and, you know, literally, the minute that hit DVD, I asked for it for Christmas, and I got it for Christmas.
Oh, nice. I loved Hong Kong Phooey, too. I used to run around the neighborhood in a red bathrobe, and Hong Kong Phooey would always have that manual he would always put in his tunic. It would never fall out. I never knew how he did that until, like, last year, I realized, oh, it's animated. They can do anything. All right, this is a softball question. Who did his voice?
Wasn't it Scatman Crothers?
It was Scatman Crothers.
Yeah.
All right, now let's segue from Hong Kong Phooey into Planet of the Apes. Let's get into this week's episode titled Screaming Winds, which is the 8th episode, and this aired October 25th, 1975. 34 years after this debuted to the date, I got married. And Sarah and I planned that too.
Really? To this episode?
Yep.
Wow. Is this your favorite episode?
Nope.
Are you pulling my leg?
Yep. Yes, I am. This is not my favorite episode because there's no big monsters in this. Now, in this episode, Bill, Jeff, and Judy head for a humanoid settlement when they spot human scarecrow targets. Suddenly, a World War II-era fighter plane appears in the sky. Piloted by a gorilla, the aircraft flies toward the scarecrows and drops a net on them. Urko and his ape army are testing the plane in preparation for planet domination. Now, Bill, Jeff, and Judy have to steal the plane if there's any hope for the humanoid race, and to see if this plane can get them back home.
And I have a question about that last statement, but we'll talk about it towards the end of the podcast.
Yes, I was kind of hoping you weren't going to spoil a tease. But yes, that does play a big part in a question I have in about 58 more minutes.
Right.
All right, so what did you think about Screaming Winds?
You know, I'm starting to realize that it's getting harder and harder to critique the animated series anymore, because as the series goes on from episode to episode, things like the animation and the artwork and the stories, they all seem to be getting lazier and lazier, making it real easy to find a lot of issues within the shows themselves. But yet, I gotta admit, there's still something enjoyable about most of the episodes. I'm really having a good time with them, and Screaming Winds is the perfect perfect example of this. Because as everyone will hear us discuss throughout the podcast, it has a lot of problems, including the fact that Cornelius and Zira seem pretty useless, and most of their scenes, at least to me, felt very unneeded. Not to mention that there are motivations around the idea of the fighter plane, which is so important to this episode, that just don't make any sense. But that being said, I still seem to really enjoy Screaming Winds. I especially like the treatment of the relationship between Urko and Zaius. It's brought to this whole new level that is so cool as these two characters start to become more of enemies than allies. And I'm really loving this, and I'm hoping that this direction to the relationship grows and becomes more intense and more interesting as the series continues. And I also really enjoyed the third act of this episode, which we'll get into later, but, it had a fair amount of action and was kind of exciting. Now, before we get to your opinion, which we're going to get to in about 2 seconds, I just wanted to mention one thing, and that is, I started thinking about this. I started thinking, how could a show that we go back and analyze and we find all these problems with, how can we enjoy it so much? Because I really am loving this animated series. I think I might even be loving it more than a lot of other people, because we got a lot of complaints before we started doing the animated series about the quality of the show, and I'm finding myself really enjoying the show, even with the animation problems, even with the story problems. And I started thinking about it, and I think that the creators were real smart when they made the show only 20 minutes long. Being so short compared to like the 50 minutes that the live action series was, it almost forces the episodes to move at a relatively quick pace, even with all the padding that we've talked about in the past. And therefore, they never really have a chance to get dull. And if you just sit down with the intent of not really examining the show, like we do here, the fast pace really does distract you away from a lot of the problems, allowing you to just have a good time, allowing you just to be entertained. Yeah, there are the exceptions like Terror on Ice Mountain, but mostly these episodes have been pretty entertaining for me, and I really do find myself enjoying them. And Screaming Winds is no exception. With all the little issues that we're going to discuss, I really, really did find myself enjoying this episode.
Now, in my opinion, this episode should have been called Urko Screaming Ego. I love the fact that he gets these planes, and now, next step, world domination from this one fighter plane.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure I understand where he gets world domination from these planes, but...
That's why I say Urko Screaming Ego. Because he thinks he's going to show Zaius how awesome this vehicle of the sky is, and Zaius is going to say, oh my goodness, you are a god among apes. Here, take the government, take the keys to my car, take whatever you like. You are Urko-tastic.
But that's one of the things that I'm kind of talking about. When you go back and you start looking at the show and start pulling it apart and start analyzing it, that stuff is kind of bothersome. But when you're watching it for the first time and you're just sitting back, relaxing, not thinking too much, just want to enjoy the show, you kind of go with the flow. And this stuff is noticeable, but it's not really noticeable enough to ruin the show. It's still an enjoyable show.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one. Just because I love the introduction of the airplanes, it seems like it's getting closer to the Pierre Boulle novels than anything else.
Right.
All right, so now let's get into the whole recap of Screaming Winds.
I feel weird about getting into this one because I really enjoyed it, and now we're going to start asking questions and going, does this make sense or does that make sense? When I feel like it should just be, let's not analyze it, let's just watch it and have fun.
Let's analyze it in the way that is fun. How's that?
I was going to say, but let's move forward and do it anyway because that's what we do here on the show.
Yeah, why stop now? So how does this show start off? Where are we?
All right, so this show starts off exactly where the last episode left off. So it's continuing the storyline, although it's going to kind of take a turn into a story all its own. And we get Bill, Jeff, and Judy, and they're making their way through the Forbidden Zone back to where the humanoids are. And Judy asks,
how much farther?
Just over there, Judy.
Now, when Bill says, just over there, Judy, he points. And after he points, we get this long pan across the mountains, or the desert, to where Jeff, Judy, and Bill are. And it's just really kind of this long, padded shot, all the way back to Bill, Jeff, and Judy. And Bill is still pointing. It's like he's pointing forever, and I thought it was kind of odd. And I was actually a little worried about the episode at this point, because it felt kind of sloppy.
Well, they have the budget to raise his arm, just not to lower his arm.
Well, it's not only that. He raises his arm. They go to the end of the mountain. They do this really long pan over. He's still got his arm raised, and then he speaks.
See those mountains? The humanoid settlement is on the other side.
But we've got to cross that plain first. And the way the apes have stepped up their patrols, that could be dangerous.
And it feels like, and maybe this is just the editor in me, that maybe he could have been speaking over the pan, so it didn't look like an actor waiting for the director to go, action.
Well, they really had 24 minutes to fill, and by golly, they were going to fill them.
Right, and when we get to Bill, Jeff, and Judy, how are they standing? Including Judy, how are they standing?
They are standing like they are in the J.C. Penney catalog. They've upgraded from Sears. Now they're in the J.C. Penney summer issue catalog.
Right. Anyway, after this long period of time, Bill mentions that the humanoids are on the other side of the mountain, in which case Jeff responds that they're going to have to cross the plain first, and the way that the apes have stepped up their patrols, it could be dangerous. But I haven't seen any apes yet. This is going to be something that's continuous throughout this episode, where we're being told how things are well guarded, they've stepped up their patrols, but we're never seeing it because when we look out into the desert, we see no jeeps or anything. It's pretty empty. And then when we do see jeeps or apes, there's very few of them.
Right. Now, they look down and they see the humanoid scarecrows.
Right, except they don't notice that they're scarecrows at first, or dummies as they call them. They actually think that they're humans and that they're in danger because right behind these rocks, they also now see these gorillas who are not patrolling, but it does look like they're planning something.
It must be okay, Jeff. I see some humanoids down there.
I'll see if I can get their attention.
No, Bill. Look, down there. It's General Urko himself. Quick, get down.
Those humanoids down there, they're in terrible danger. Why don't they run?
They aren't moving at all.
Those aren't humanoids, Jeff. Look closely.
Dummies. But why?
I really wanted these scarecrows to look like they did in the movie, in the first Planet of the Apes movies, or even in the intro to the series, we do see a callback to those X type of scarecrows. But I know they needed that one moment of, hey, look, there's humanoids down there, for what, I don't know.
Well, I think they were going for a little bit of a mislead here, but because we find out so quickly that they're actually dummies, I'm not necessarily sure that it's needed. So now we move forward, and what happens? Much like the horses in the live-action series where you hear them coming long before they get there, in order to, give humanoids or anybody who's in danger enough warning to, hey, something's up. We hear an airplane long before we see it.
Shh! Listen. It sounds like... No, it can't be.
This is Wing Commander Lago. Come in, General Urko. Over.
Incredible.
A World War II fighter plane. I flew one once in an air show.
Did she just say that she flew a World War II fighter jet?
Yeah.
Kind of convenient.
At first I was thinking, wait a minute, she's not old enough to have been in World War II, but then she said she flew one in an air show.
Right, I actually had the same question when it happened because it makes sense as an astronaut that she, would be able to pilot a plane.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, but World War II? And then I realized that she said air show, and that kind of made sense. And I'll tell you what I like about her saying this. Not only is it going to lead up to something later in the episode, but it's now giving us some backstory on Judy. And one of the things I do like about this episode is some of the characters that we haven't been getting a lot of character building on are now starting to get that. And I think that Judy is now given a little bit of a backstory here, and I like that.
Yeah, me too. I really like that too, and I was hoping they would go more into it. And now, when they show the airplane, I like the humanoid heads on the side of the plane. Right. Kind of grotesque, but I like their attention to detail.
Right. Now, what do you think that means? Is that like all the humanoids they've captured with the plane? I say captured, and I'll explain that in a minute, but is that what maybe that means?
Captured or killed. Usually that means a kill.
Right, but we're going to learn in a couple of seconds that there are no guns on this plane. It's just a net, so I'm assuming it's got to be captured. But, we might be just getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, because we're going to go into this in a little bit more detail in a couple of minutes. At this point, we cut down to the apes where General Urko, on his walkie-talkie, calls out to the pilot, whose name is Lago.
Wing Commander Lago, all is ready. Make your pass now. Roger, General.
Wait a minute, is Lago piloting this plane or is it Spider-Man? Because he drops this net and it looks like Spider-Man just shot a big mega web.
Right. Lago, flies the plane, and then, I'm expecting guns blazing because this is, a World War II jet. That's what they did. They fired guns. But instead here, they drop a net. And they not only drop a net, but that net seems to float through the air for about, 3, 4, 5 minutes before it lands on the two scarecrows. Okay, it was only about 10 seconds, but it seems to float forever before it actually lands on the dummies. Now, did you notice how the net didn't actually just land on the two dummies? It actually kind of settled over the dummies and then wrapped itself around them in order to capture them?
Yeah, that's not normal for a net, but it is for a spider web. I'm just saying.
I was just going to say that Lago is one hell of a trick shot artist.
Okay, but I would appreciate it in the future if you called him Wing Commander Lago.
Okay, Wing Commander Lago is one hell of a trick shot artist.
No wonder he's got so many heads on the side of his plane. But now when we cut back to Jeff, Judy, and Bill, they know that with this mega weapon, Urko is going to be that much more powerful.
How is Urko going to be that much more powerful?
Because he's got a plane.
That'll drop a net that's pretty much big enough to capture 2 people before it now has to turn around, go all the way back to the base, get another net that they can then drop on 2 more people so they can turn around. Because that net, it's the only net. You can see that when it drops, there's no more nets there. And it's only big enough to capture these 2 scarecrows, which means after that, the plane has to go back, get another net.
Well, then Urko's going to take down the humanoid race 2 scarecrows at a time.
Well, it's actually going to be 2 humanoids at a time. I don't think he's just going to go hunting scarecrows.
Well, you know what? Urko's not too bright in this episode, so who knows?
But you notice what Urko says.
I did it. I did it.
Wait a minute. Didn't Lago drop the net?
Yeah, but when it comes time, Urko's going to say that he was in the plane. Wasn't Lago, wasn't Spider-Man, it was him.
Right. But now getting back to what you were talking about before, when we cut back to Bill, Jeff, and Judy, and Bill says,
with that plane, there'll be no stopping the apes. Urko can locate and capture every humanoid on this planet.
We'll have to find a way to destroy it.
Or steal it.
Once again, I don't understand how he's going to be able to locate and capture every humanoid on the planet. First of all, the minute the humanoids hear the airplanes coming, they're going to run. Second of all, as we just talked about, Urko's going to have 5,000 of them in the air in order to capture a lot of, humanoids, so...
that's a good point. When you hear the plane engines, all right, everyone pack your bags, we're out of here. They're going to be here in about 20 minutes.
I do find it interesting that Judy wants to find a way to destroy it, whereas Jeff just wants to steal it. Why would they want to steal it as opposed to destroy it? Because if they steal it, it'll still be out there where it can be found again, whereas destroying it gets rid of all the evidence.
If I were Jeff or Bill or even Judy, I would try to amass some kind of an army. If I can take as many weapons as I could, or planes or vehicles, yeah, I'd want to steal it. I wouldn't want it to destroy it.
So you're thinking that they should steal it so that the humanoids can now maybe build some more planes using it as a blueprint, the way we're going to find out the apes are doing.
Yeah, I don't think there's too many aviation shops around where they're going to go in and buy propellers and engines and wheels.
Right, so once again, I don't understand why they would steal it. There's absolutely nothing they can do with it, and there's a chance that the apes could find it again.
All right, it's a half-baked plan, okay? You're asking the wrong person. All right, let's move on. We cut to Urko and Wing Commander Lago and a new character, Dr. Lycus.
Well, I actually would like to call him Dr. Lorry, because he sounds like Peter Lorre.
Yes, he does. I had that same note.
And we don't get his name at first, so I thought we were going to be calling him throughout the show Dr. Lorry. But he does have a name, like you said, Dr. Lycus.
Yeah, Urko does in this scene call him Dr. Lycus, but he does say it very quickly. And in my notes, I wrote down Dr. Langus, because that's what I thought he'd said, but he does say his name.
Now, let me ask you, before we go any further, when we first get to the compound, they pan across, and to me, the very first impression I had was it looked exactly like the prisoner of war camp Stalag 13 from Hogan's Heroes.
You know it does.
That is, at least until we get to the big hangar that Urko, Lago, and Dr. Lycus are standing in front of. Once they get to the big hangar, it kills the illusion, but up until that point, I thought we were in like a prisoner of war camp, because I always remember Hogan's Heroes. I thought that was kind of interesting.
You know what? That's one show I've never watched.
You've never watched Hogan's Heroes?
I got no reaction to that.
Oh my God, how dare you.
I see nothing. I know nothing.
we're going to stop the show right now. You go watch some Hogan's Heroes. We'll be back.
All right. So what is Dr. Lycus telling General Urko?
Okay, so of course we go into this conversation between Urko, Lycus, and Lago.
Wing Commander Lago, please. The man worked for a title. Use it.
General Urko, Dr. Lycus, and Wing Commander Lago.
Was that so hard?
A wonderful day, Wing Commander Lago.
There are even better days ahead, General Urko.
The air vehicle was a complete success, Dr. Lycus. You are to be congratulated.
Restoring this ancient craft was comparatively simple, General Urko. Now I must find out the principles that make it work.
Just make certain that this one is working for the demonstration tomorrow. I want Dr. Zaius to be impressed. Very impressed.
I like this, I want Dr. Zaius to be impressed, and then the laugh, because we're about to see a relationship with Zaius and Urko that I really, really like. And this is the beginning of it, because Urko is now coming off as a little arrogant. In earlier episodes of this animated series, we've seen the orangutans, talking down to him and laughing at him. Here, we're getting a no-nonsense Urko again, and we're gonna get a no-nonsense Urko again, really starting to show itself in the next scene. But before we get into that next scene, I do want to make sure we mention one thing that's very important to the episode, and that's when Dr. Lycus says that restoring the ancient craft was simple, but he must now find the principles that make it work. It's going to be real important that they have this airplane fully functional, because later on we're going to find out how they're going to use that fully functional airplane to build blueprints and build more planes by using it as a blueprint. And I just want to make sure that we notice that it was mentioned here, because it becomes very important later on.
Wait a minute. Isn't that a contradiction? They built this plane, but yet they don't understand how it works.
No, they didn't build this plane. They found it, but it wasn't necessarily working. So they were able to fix it up and get it working.
Right.
And now that they've got it working, they're going to probably go into it and just really tear it down and create a blueprint of it so they can figure out how to build more.
Yeah, that just seems like they're contradicting.
They would have never been able to build it before, but now that they found one that's already built, they can copy it.
Right, but they still had to do an overhaul, so if they did it once, why are they doubting themselves? And plus, if they are doubting themselves on this contraption here, why did they send poor Lago up there if they didn't really fully understand this vehicle?
I don't think they were ever really doubting themselves. I think they thought it was going to work. I have a feeling that when they got the plane, it was 90% in an operational status. And so it wasn't very hard for them to get it working.
But still, you can't send a plane that's 90% complete up in the air, so they must have some kind of knowledge on it.
Well, unless you're Urko, and Urko's just intent on, getting this to work so he can be in control, as we're going to find out in the next scene. So he doesn't care about whether he sends, poor Lago up there and it crashes. He's got other gorillas he can send up later to keep trying and keep trying.
All right, point well taken. Well, now, let's talk about this next scene, because I love Urko's delusions of grandeur.
I love this next scene. This is one of the scenes that makes me really like this episode, because we go in to Zaius' office where Urko and Zaius are in mid-conversation.
Unthinkable, General Urko. Nothing on this planet could make me turn the government over to you.
There is one thing, Dr. Zaius. This. A relic of the past, but it assures my future.
Where did you get this? It is a link to a past best forgotten. I order you to destroy it.
From now on, I give the orders, Dr. Zaius.
You'll regret this, Urko.
We'll see, Dr. Zaius. Tomorrow.
I really think that this may be one of my favorite scenes in the whole entire series, because this vocal confrontation between Urko and Zaius is just great. Urko's threatening Zaius, and Zaius isn't backing down. We learn that Urko is intent on taking over the government. He's not just intent on destroying the humans. He wants to take down the ape government so he can run things his way. And this is very different than the Urko from the live-action series, who just wanted to destroy all the humans.
He doesn't want to take down the government. He wants to control the government.
Yeah, he wants to take over the government is what I meant.
Okay, gotcha.
So he wants to be in charge so he can start running things his way. He's tired of the orangutans and their way of doing things. He's tired of being laughed at from them. And now he's going to stand up, and he's not just going to stand by and be content on destroying the humans. No, he wants to run the whole entire planet himself. He wants to be in charge so that he can do things without anybody questioning him.
At this point, I really want to see a new story form where Zaius tries to take down Urko. You see the struggle with Zaius trying to get as many apes on his side to say, hey, you know what, this Urko, he's a loose cannon. He showed me a picture of this flying thing, and he's saying this and he's saying that. I want to start seeing him going up against Urko a little bit more and trying to take away his position.
Right, but if they keep going with future episodes the way they're going with this one, because of the way this episode ends, and we'll talk about this in more detail when we get there, I have a feeling that's what we're going to see more of starting in the next episode. At least I'm hoping that they go there and they're smart enough to do what you just said, because at the end of this episode, it really feels like we're going to start getting this almost inner war between Urko and Zaius. And I really hope that this happens because that gets me excited. Although, once again, you know, as we discussed in other episodes, Tunnel of Fear looked like it was going to lead up to a bunch of stuff and then they dropped it. Yeah. So we don't know what's going to happen. I'm just hoping that what you just said happens. And when this episode ended, I got a feeling that that's where it might be leading.
Now that I'm remembering, there is a little hint of that at the end of this episode.
Right, there's more than a hint, and we'll get into it when we get there.
Yeah, I just didn't want to spoil it, which is why I said hint.
Right, so now we dissolve to Cornelius and Zira in their laboratory, and Cornelius finds an invitation to this demonstration, which actually, we forgot to mention that in the scene in front of the hangar with Commander Lago, Dr. Lycus, and Urko, when Urko says that he wants Dr. Zaius to be very impressed and laughs, you know, remember we talked about that? Well, right before he says he wants Dr. Zaius to be very impressed and laughs, he mentions that he has this demonstration for Zaius. And of course, he's going to demonstrate the plane in order to show everybody how dangerous Urko thinks it is so that he can take over the government. And so now Cornelius is finding an invitation to this demonstration on his desk.
You are invited to a demonstration of a new secret weapon at General Urko's Strategic Defense Headquarters.
This invitation was sent to all the government leaders and the scientists here in Ape City.
Then those rumors we've been hearing about a secret weapon are true.
What's the point of this scene? I'm going to ask this a lot with the Cornelius and Zira scenes because I'm not necessarily sure this is giving us any new information that we didn't already get in the last couple of scenes.
Yeah, at this point, they're like sea-level characters.
I know, and I don't like that.
No, me neither.
I don't mind if they disappear for an episode, because the episodes don't always have to be about them, but at least if you're going to come to them, allow them to give us some new information, and I don't feel like this scene was even needed. The only thing that I was thinking was maybe because it's geared towards kids, that certain things may go over kids' heads, or may easily be forgotten, so they want to repeat it just to make sure that the kids got it.
Yeah.
And that I understand as a reasoning, but I'm an adult watching it, and I'm like, I don't understand why I needed to hear that.
Yeah, really. Why didn't Cullen Houghtaling say, you know what, in 40 years, Mark and Richard will be doing a podcast, and they're not going to appreciate us repeating the same dialogue.
Right.
I'm sure if you look through their production notes, they did say that.
So now we cut to just outside Ape City, where Judy is getting her first glimpse of Ape City.
So that's Ape City. But where would they keep the plane?
We'll have to find out. Do you have a mirror?
What for?
I'm going to try to signal Cornelius.
Okay, so now Bill, Jeff, and Judy, they decide they have to know where the plane is, and they're going to get Cornelius and Zira's help. But instead of going into Ape City, which would be really dangerous, they decide that they're just going to signal Cornelius and Zira. And how do they decide to do that?
They don't have a cell phone. They can't text them. What are they going to do if only they had a very, very small compact mirror?
You got to remember, in an earlier episode, it worked for Cornelius.
And apparently it works every time. Now, I thought, oh, a flash signal. This is going to be awesome. I love the flash signal. They pull out a little tiny compact mirror, and wow, the light that bounces from this is like you could beacon small aircraft with this.
Well, we're going to talk in a couple of seconds about how strong that flash is, because we go back to the lab where Zira is, and as Zira's filling up a beaker at this point, in one of the worst shots in the show's history, where we see her two hands filling the beakers, and past the hands we see the window, we get this flash of light coming from that little tiny mirror that literally blinds Zira. It's so bright that it blinds her.
Oh!
What happened?
A light. It blinded me.
I just love and hate that at the same time.
It's like, how is that going to blind her?
Yeah, but you know what? I was thinking something during this, but then surprisingly, Judy says it in the next line.
I hope they're the only ones who see it.
Are you kidding me? This thing's brighter than the sun.
It's bright enough to blind Zira.
And you're flashing it into Ape City. Chances are someone else is going to see this.
Right. And then Zira immediately assumes it's from Blue Eyes.
I believe it's a signal.
You're right. It's coming from that clearing.
Do you suppose it could be Blue Eyes?
Well, of course.
I got a question about this. I want you to remember this because it's going to come up again. How come she doesn't ever think it's Jeff? Why is it always immediately to Blue Eyes?
I think when she says Blue Eyes, she means both of them.
I don't know. She's always kind of saying Blue Eyes. She never ever says Blue Eyes and Jeff or anything like that. It's always immediately Blue Eyes. Unless, she's recognizing some of the stupidity in Jeff that we've mentioned in the past. And so only Blue Eyes would be smart enough to do this.
Well, I think you might be right about that.
Well, Zira's pretty smart.
I love this. Cornelius, he does a shoulder roll into his Jeep, and they're on their way to make sure that is actually Bill. Now, he doesn't really do a shoulder roll, but the next shot, they're already up and moving. Now, that could have been just something in the distance, something laying there, a piece of garbage, piece of trash reflecting up this light, but they're certain it's going to be Blue Eyes.
Yeah, they don't think that it could be something dangerous or it could be a trap or something. They just immediately think it's Blue Eyes and they head on out. And of course, Bill and Jeff and Judy, they see that they're coming, and Bill and Jeff want Judy to hide just in case Cornelius and Zira were followed. And so she hides, and Cornelius and Zira arrive, and they have their little conversation.
Blue Eyes. Jeff.
We've been worried. Thank goodness you two are safe.
The truth is, none of us is safe, Zira. General Urko has a new weapon.
We've heard rumors about it.
We've seen it. It's an airplane.
Airplane?
It's a vehicle that travels through the sky.
Amazing.
In Urko's hands, it is a very dangerous weapon. He must be stopped.
I love the way Zira sounds out airplane. Now, I gotta tell you, if she was gonna fall in love with that word like she did with gondola, I would have turned it off and we would not have done this episode. That's all it would have taken.
Right, but I believe she's just spelling it out because she's
sounding it out. Airplane?
Right.
Gondola?
Right.
I would have been so out of this.
Right, but they also seem to be very surprised that there's a vehicle that travels through the sky because Zira says amazing, and all I'm thinking about, wait a minute, what about the balloon that traveled through the sky?
And the gondola?
Yeah, exactly. So why is she so surprised by this airplane? Why is she so surprised that there's a vehicle that travels through the sky when she's already encountered one in an earlier episode?
Well, I think she got through the fact that that was a hot air balloon, but this doesn't look like a hot air balloon. So I can see where it would have taken her by surprise.
Right, but she hasn't seen the plane, so she doesn't know what it looks like. So it seems like the idea of a vehicle going through the air wouldn't be as much a surprise to her. Also, another thing about this scene is, once again, they're explaining General Urko has a new weapon, and it's all stuff we already have heard, 3 times in the episode now, and we haven't even gotten to the first commercial break.
But then Cornelius does say, hey, I know where he's keeping it. So that's one piece of information that moves the plot ahead.
How can we help?
We need to know where he keeps it.
It's at his fortress. We're invited to a demonstration tomorrow. I've got a map in the Jeep.
So now we learn that Urko's little Stalag 13 compound is considered a fortress. When I think of a fortress, I think of like a big castle or a big, something. Not something that looks like a prisoner of war camp.
Well, maybe to them that's their idea of a fortress.
But of course, Cornelius knows where this fortress is, and he's got a map in the Jeep. But before we get to go to the map, Zira hears a noise.
Wait, what's that?
It's all right. This is Judy. She is a friend.
Another talking humanoid?
Come on. We've got to get that map and move on. It isn't safe here.
Here's the map, Jeff.
Now, after Judy comes out and reveals herself, Cornelia says another talking humanoid.
But she doesn't speak.
That's my question. She never talks. How does she's a talking humanoid? I mean, she doesn't say anything.
Well, see, it's all character building. He becomes a psychic for hire.
Right.
He'll do late night infomercials now.
Anyway, Cornelius gives them the map to the restricted area that he has in his Jeep to the fortress. And you notice that the map, it's folded up, and on the cover of the map, it says restricted area, and the restricted area is called the Black Zone.
Yeah.
So now we have the Forbidden Zone, and we have the Black Zone. I wonder what zones are coming next.
Yeah, I really want to see this Black Zone.
Well, we're about to go down because that's where the fortress is. But before we go down there, Zero warns them.
Be very careful. Urko's fortress is heavily guarded.
Don't worry, Zero. We'll make it.
Okay, so remember, she just said that Urko's fortress is heavily guarded because we now dissolve down to this heavily guarded prisoner of war camp straight out of Hogan's Heroes. And wait, she said it's heavily guarded. I see one gorilla sitting at the entrance, and he's reading a book. Oh my god, how are they going to get past this?
Well, to give Zira's comment some weight, this gorilla does look kind of hefty, so maybe that's what she was referring to. That he's a heavy gorilla, heavily guarded. I can see where the translation would get lost.
I don't know.
Mark, just work with me. Work with me here.
Okay, I'll try and work with you, but
Don't work with me. Work with the writers. Work with the animation director. Work with Cullen Houghtaling.
Well, how about this? Now they have to figure out how they're going to get past this guard. And they come up with a plan because Bill notices some gasoline drums. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be really cool. Sure, we didn't get any guns blazing, Sam Peckinpah style with the plane. We only got a net. But at least now we're going to get an explosion or two. Or zero. Because that's not what happens.
No, we get action with a stick.
Yeah, that's right. They find these gasoline drums. And they come up with what sounds like it's probably a pretty good plan. And all they do is they go poke it with a stick. And the drums go rolling down the hill and distract the guard.
Did you notice that a lot of the animation is now reduced to just an arm poking in the frame instead of having the character walk in the frame? Now it's just a 13-foot arm that pokes into the frame to do something.
Right. Well, that's what I meant earlier when I said it would, things seem to be getting lazier and lazier.
I don't think it's a lazy thing, but more of a budget thing.
Right. But I mean, would it really have cost that much more to have them standing in frame? Because they don't really move any part of the body unless needed. So he could have been standing still while only moving the arm while using the stick to poke at the gas cans.
All right, let's get Cullen on the phone. Only he can answer this.
You're really loving this guy's name, aren't you?
He's my new Arch Bacon.
All right, so they poke the drums, which are evidently on top of a hill because they go rolling down the hill and they cause all this noise and everything. And the guard looks up and then he goes over and he pulls an alarm. And I just have a question about this plan of Jeff, Judy, and Bill's because I'm assuming that these gasoline cans are supposed to cause this distraction in order for Bill, Jeff, and Judy to sneak into this warehouse that's off to the side. But I keep thinking to myself, wouldn't all the noise make more apes come out to see what's going on, and that would make it harder for Bill, Jeff, and Judy to sneak away? Wouldn't it have been better for them to maybe snuck up on the one gorilla and maybe knocked him out? I mean, the compound looked pretty empty, so if they had just done that, they would have been able to, walk around the compound to their heart's content. We get these pans around the compound. It's empty. But instead, they go and they make all this noise that's going to cause all these gorillas to come out. Although maybe they are smarter than me because I don't know if you noticed this, but no gorillas do come out. Like, the guy pulls an alarm and nobody comes running. We just get this one gorilla standing amongst the falling gasoline cans, scratching his head.
Well, these apes are all union. We'll get there when we get there.
Right? The whole place pretty much is deserted when Zira just, a couple minutes ago said how well guarded the fortress was. And then, of course, Bill, Jeff, and Judy, they make it to this warehouse that they mentioned that they could go running to. And of course, Bill's all happy now that they seem to be safe. But then out of nowhere, he says,
We got in. Now the question is, can we get out?
And with that cliffhanger kind of question, we cut to our first commercial.
Hi, you remember my pal 2XL.
I am 2XL, the smartest robot in the world.
Don't get carried away, 2XL, because I can make you even smarter with these exciting new tapes. For kids, teens, adults, on sports, worlds, records, science fiction, music, puzzles, riddles, jokes.
With my looks and your brains, we could go far.
Don't get too smart. 2XL tapes by Mego.
At toy stores everywhere.
Can you believe that there was a time when that robot was considered cool?
Yeah, it's like square.
And we'll have to post either a picture or maybe the commercial so people will understand what we're talking about. But as I'm looking at that robot, I'm like, even back then, I'm not necessarily sure I would have thought that was cool.
But the robot's name is 2XL. Is that his waist size? What are we talking about here? And the fact that he plays 8-track tapes for kids, teens, and adults. What kind of tapes are we talking about here? They showed a rundown list like you would see on any 8-track commercial way back in the day with all the songs listed, but I'm not really sure what the tapes contained.
Right, but they're not songs. They're more like lessons because they list things like metric systems.
Yeah, monsters, myths, and legends.
It's sort of like the Teddy Ruxpin. You know, he didn't sing songs, he educated the kids. And so I think maybe this was early Teddy Ruxpin.
You know what? I think you may be right about that.
If we didn't have this toy, we would have never had Teddy Ruxpin. And so there you go.
I want to find out where this kid is these days. Because he's actually having an argument with 2XL. And then 2XL, he laughs maniacally like a gremlin. That almost made me go, ah! That was just a very interesting commercial. I thought this is going to be perfect for Talking Apes TV.
So now we come up from commercial on a gorilla sergeant as he's making his rounds. And it's one of these shots that's a close-up on the gorilla sergeant because, like before, when you were talking about how they're drawing the bare minimum, I guess they didn't want to draw this whole Jeep. And he runs into a corporal at his post.
Still at your post, Corporal. Good man. Not one to panic, huh?
I heard the emergency alarm go off, Sergeant. What was it all about?
That alarm had half the compound running around in confusion. A stack of oil drums fell over and scared the East Gate sentry.
He pushed the panic button, huh?
Yeah, with all the top-secret work being done here, everybody's a little bit jumpy.
I guess the tension will ease off after tomorrow, though, when the General unveils his secret weapon.
Hard to imagine, isn't it? A vehicle that flies.
Okay, so there's a number of things here that I wanted to ask you about. One, the sergeant says that alarm had half the compound running around in confusion. I saw one gorilla. Does that mean there were 2 apes in the compound?
Well, I admire your math skills. And yes, the shot you're looking at right now with the corporal and the guy in the Jeep, there's your army.
Then the sergeant says it scared the Eastgate General, in which case the corporal replies he pushed the panic button, huh? I'm pretty sure he pulled a lever. The writers are confused. Once again, this is one of those things that you probably wouldn't notice if you
didn't do a podcast.
Yeah, if you didn't do a podcast. So, you can go with the flow on that, but I thought I would mention it. And then the sergeant says, yeah, with all the top secret work being done here, everybody's a little jumpy. So wait, all this top secret work is being done, and they've got, as we just mentioned, 2 gorillas guarding it.
Hold on, let me get Cullen on the line, because you're asking questions that I cannot answer. I'm sorry.
I think the only reason for this scene, though, was to create a little bit of tension because Bill, Jeff, and Judy are behind a building, listening to all of this. And then the sergeant says,
Your relief will be here shortly, Corporal. I just have to patrol the street in back of this building, and then I'm off duty.
I think they were trying to create tension here, like a danger that Jeff, Judy, and Bill might get caught because this sergeant is now going to go and check out behind the building where Bill, Jeff, and Judy just happen to be. But of course, conveniently, right to their side is an open door that they can jump into. Another thing that I noticed in the dialogue is when the corporal says,
It kind of scares me, Sarge. A few flying machines like that would make foot soldiers like us obsolete.
Why would these few flying machines make the foot soldiers obsolete? We've already kind of talked about how they're only going to be able to net 2 humanoids at a time.
I did make a note of this too, but then I thought it through and thought, I can see where he's thinking, well, if these planes are going to be dropping nets, they're not going to be needing us anymore on the ground to do this. So I can see where he's going with that.
But I still think they would need the foot soldiers. I mean, let's face it, we have an army, a navy, a marines, and an air force, and we still need all 4. So I'm not necessarily sure that these flying machines would make the foot soldiers obsolete, even if they did a lot more.
I know it's a very negative Ned thing to say, but maybe that's just his personality.
Right. So anyway, the sergeant moves out to search behind the buildings, but our heroes, as I mentioned earlier, they found a building to hide out in, so they jump into the building. And after the gorilla drives by, Jeff looks through the window to make sure that everything's okay. And then we kind of fade to black. only to fade up on this one shot of a pan over to a train, and then we go back to Bill, Jeff, and Judy. And I'm not necessarily sure why we had to fade to black. Why didn't we just see the Jeep go by and then have Bill, Jeff, and Judy notice the train, which is going to be important later on?
Well, because that fade showed a passage of time of 15 seconds.
Right. Well, I thought that the fade might have been a passage of time, but then I kept thinking to myself, why would they need a passage of time? It didn't make sense. It felt like, this could all be happening at the same time.
Well, maybe that was a very important 15 seconds for them not to show. It's a very interactive episode. They want the audience to guess what's going on.
So we do go back to Bill, Jeff, and Judy notices a building that's large enough to be a hangar.
That building. It's large enough to be a hangar.
That's probably where they're keeping the plane. We've got to get a look in there somehow.
We can use that train for cover. Let's go.
So now they're going to formulate their plan so that they can go into the hangar and steal the plane. I still don't know why they're going to steal it. If I was them, I would have gone and got one of the gasoline drums, stuck it in the cockpit and blown it up, and get rid of all the evidence and everything that the apes could possibly use to build more, but they're going to steal the plane instead.
Yeah, I'm going back with Jeff, and I'd want to steal this just to have something on my side. And plus, we're going to find out they've got other plans for this plane later on.
Yeah, but those plans don't make any sense, but we'll get into that later.
No, it doesn't once you think it through. But at the time, the adrenaline's rushing. They're not really thinking things through, obviously. They're not really thinking much through right now.
Right, but I don't see that as a flaw in the script or anything, because to me it feels like they would be rushed and they probably wouldn't be thinking everything all the way through because they only have till tomorrow when the demonstration shows.
Yeah.
Anyway, as Bill, Jeff, and Judy approach the hangar, the door opens and our three heroes notice something.
There's the plane.
It's bigger than I thought.
But look behind it.
An aircraft factory.
What we're seeing here is a bunch of other aircraft being built. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but this is when we really realize that what they're doing is they're using the plane that works to learn how to build more planes. They are going to build a slew of these things so that they're not capturing humanoids 2 at a time. They're doing it maybe 100 at a time because now they have 50 planes. I can see this as being a little bit more dangerous, but I still don't know how this is going to be this big thing that Urko's making it out to be.
Well, I don't think he's really thinking it through.
Right. The only thing that I can really think of is it's a kid's show, and to the kids in the audience, this would seem like a big deal. And we're only picking it apart because we're adults and we realize, how silly it kind of is. But I don't think the kids are going to notice that.
Right. At this point, this is where we see the rolling jail car.
Right. It's like a truck with a flatbed prison kind of cage on the back.
Yeah, and all the prisoners are in shadow to save another 35 cents. And what we find out here is that these humanoids are going to be used for target practice at the demonstration the next day, where Urko is going to show Zaius that with this new sky vehicle, it's going to be so much easier to capture humans, so they can do it that much more efficiently. And that's the point where he's expecting Zaius to say, wow, you are a god amongst apes. Here, take the government and whatever else you want. Here's some loose change.
It's actually interesting that they went out and rounded up these humanoids as opposed to just, setting up a bunch of human dummies out there, which might have been a lot easier than sending your force out to hunt down humanoids for this demonstration.
Well, I think they already had them on hand. These guys were in stock.
Right. Well, maybe, because they have been spending their days capturing humanoids. We've seen it in the past. And as I'm thinking about it now, it also might be more effective because dummies are going to just be kind of standing still. But by having these humanoids out there, they'll be running all over the place. And so if Lago, who's going to be flying the plane, can net these moving targets, it might actually look more threatening.
Right, and Zaius will say, wow, you're more powerful than Spider-Man.
And so now Bill and Jeff are putting it all together. They're realizing that it's not going to be as easy as just stealing one plane. Because the apes are building more, they're going to have to do more than steal that one plane.
Humans.
Yes. Remember what we saw in the valley with the dummies?
They're not going to use dummies tomorrow.
Stealing the plane won't work. They'll just build more.
Now, Urko arrives in his Rolls Royce, or his Hitlermobile, as you like to call it.
Right. And he's with Lago and Dr. Lycus.
And Urko says,
tomorrow we will show them what sky power can do. Thanks to you, Dr. Lycus.
I knew when I found the relic it would be useful to you, General.
And As soon as you know exactly how to build them, we will fill the skies with these vehicles. Then the whole planet will be under my control.
Okay, so here's where we actually learn that Urko's plans are much bigger than we thought, because earlier on, he was basically talking about as if he wanted to just take control of Zaius and the apes in this area. He wants to use these vehicles to take over the whole planet. And so Urko is now starting to get a little evil, and I love the fact that he laughs after he says, under my control.
That's the only thing that can make him laugh. Even if you rub and tickle his tummy, nope.
What if you tickle his helmet?
If you tickle under his helmet, that could go either way.
But then, once again, I'm really liking how Urko is being built here, because when we see Zaius, Zaius acts a certain way and Urko acts a certain way, and their relationship, even when they're not together, you can kind of see how they're going to clash and hopefully get to that point that you were talking about earlier. Now we cut back to Cornelius and Zira. There's a lot of cutting back and forth. The scenes in this episode are really, really short, and I think it adds to the pace of the episode and kind of makes it a little bit more exciting, even though, we're seeing all these little issues. The first time you watch it, you're not seeing them as much because of how fast the episode's moving with all the cutting back and forth, because now we cut back to Cornelius and Zira is worried.
Cornelius, I'm very concerned about Blue Eyes and Jeff and Judy.
They must be safe. If they were caught, we would have heard.
Do you think they'll be able to stop Urko?
I hope so, Zira. I hate to think what Urko might do with that weapon.
Against the humanoids?
An ape with Urko's ambition might not stop there, Zira.
I want to say that this is kind of a pointless scene. I really don't think we ever really have to go back to Cornelius and Zira, but I do like one line, and that's when Cornelius says, an ape with Urko's ambitions might not stop there, Zira, because I think now we're starting to build Urko into a much stronger character. I think that this episode's really starting to build Urko into a stronger character, and I think that line helps quite a bit.
Oh, it helps by what Zaius has been saying and what Cornelius and Zira have been saying.
And the fact that Urko's got this plan.
Yeah, he's just mad with power at this point. He's not going to stop until someone stops him.
Then we cut to the guard tower at night, and two gorillas are searching the compound with a large spotlight, keeping an eye on things. And once again, everything is deserted. And we go to all these shots, I guess a little bit of padding, before we get to building 15. And when we go inside, Bill, Jeff, and Judy are discussing their plan for the next day.
Judy, are you sure you can fly that thing?
I flew one once in an air show. I think I can.
Rest is up to us, Jeff.
Yeah. Us and a lot of luck.
I do like this part where Judy's foreshadowing in the beginning, where she was a pilot. This is starting to pay off because it's revealed that she's gonna steal the plane and fly away with it. So Judy's foreshadowing in the beginning is paying off here, where you didn't think that was going to go anywhere because no one had asked her any follow-up questions. But now you see that she's a pilot. She's going to be the one to be able to steal the plane.
She's going to fly that thing out of there. Now, we have to notice that Bill says the rest is up to us after Judy says that, she can fly the thing. And Jeff agrees, yeah, us and a lot of luck. And I wasn't really sure what they meant by this when I was watching it for the first time. We are actually going to find out a little bit later what they mean. But at this point in the show, I was kind of confused. But it kind of works to benefit the episode because it adds some mystery on what they're talking about.
Well, I just figured they were talking about causing a diversion. Well, Judy takes the plane. They were going to do something to bring the apes' attention somewhere else.
But that's not what they're talking about at all.
No, not at all. But when I first saw this, that's just where my mind went. So I didn't think much of it.
So it's a little misleading, and it gets you to question things. And generally, I don't like stuff like this because I like to know what our heroes are doing. It allows me to relate to them a little bit better. But on a show that's this quick, and I know I'm going to find out in about 5 minutes, I like the fact that there's a little bit of mystery here and kind of keeps me guessing.
Yeah, maybe my brain just connected the dots.
But it didn't because you're wrong on what it meant.
Right, but it's still, it's not too far from it.
It's quite a ways from it, actually.
We still understand that they're going to do something.
They're not going to create a diversion, though.
No, they're not. They're not. But I know they're going to do something else to wreak havoc on the apes as Judy's taking the plane.
What it all comes down to, whether you get your guesses right or wrong, you have no idea. You're just speculating.
Even when it's happening, you really have no idea.
Well, for the first 90% of when it's happening, you have no idea what they're doing until the ending happens. We'll get into that.
But now, you know what? Let's talk about these apes who are sitting and watching the demonstration.
We dissolve to the next day, and we get all the apes coming into the demonstration, and we see Cornelius and Zira sitting next to an ape in a Hawaiian shirt.
I want this action figure.
It's awesome.
I love this. This guy's a tourist, if there ever was one.
These little touches seem silly, but they're funny enough to make you laugh and enjoy the episode.
You know, just out of frame, he's got his camera. This guy's on vacation.
Right.
Now, if you look at Zira and look at the orangutan 2 rows up, that guy's sleeping like me at the movies.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I was too busy looking at the Hawaiian shirted guy.
Yeah, this guy's napping.
And then we cut to these 2 orangutans that are pretty pointless to this whole entire thing, with the exception of one cool thing. One of them sounds like he's voiced by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
What do you think Urko has up his sleeve this time?
We'll find out his secret in a few minutes.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I love about those orangutans. Their voices. Love the voice actors.
Right. So, now, we cut to Zaius as Urko is greeting him, and the War of the Words continues.
Ah, Dr. Zaius, how good of you to come. Yours is the seat of honor, sir. After all, you are our leader.
You will learn, Urko, that true leadership cannot be taken. It must be earned.
I'm really liking these exchanges between the two of them. I really feel like it's adding a new level to their relationship and adding a new level to the show. But that's a very quick exchange, cool as it was, because we then cut into this room where the pilot, Wing Commander Lago, is looking in a mirror and getting ready while reciting the beginning of this really corny poem.
Now, I've got to admit, when I saw this, it took me 3 times to figure this shot out because I thought there were 2 pilots standing there.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you. I kept thinking, why is he talking like this? And one ape speaks, but both their mouths are moving.
Oh my God.
And then on like the 8th or 9th viewing, it's like, oh, that's a mirror. I gotcha.
Right. And I bet you in the corner, if I look really close, I'll see a vampire as well.
That would just be silly.
So, but I want to come back to this, what he's reciting, because I'm not really sure why he's reciting this poem. I just wish it were a little longer.
Hear that big engine purr. Feel the wind in your fur.
That's good writing.
But unfortunately, we don't get any more of this little poem because he's interrupted by Bill and Jeff, who are on the other side of the door to the room, pretending to be these apes delivering a gift from General Urko.
Wing Commander Lago?
Yes, what is it?
A good luck gift from General Urko.
Oh, come on in, it's open.
Now, for some reason, Lago buys into this ruse and tells them to come on in. My question is this: why would Lago not get suspicious of this? When has Urko ever sent somebody a gift?
Yeah, or if it came from Urko, wouldn't you think, oh, I want to see what this is?
I didn't think about it that way. That would actually make more sense, because he would be thinking more of the lines, Urko doesn't give gifts. Oh man, I gotta see what this is. And so he lets them in, and as they enter the room, Lago never turns around. He doesn't see them in the mirror, but they are holding up this large tarp that we can only assume they're going to throw over Lago, because before they get a chance to do anything, we cut away.
Well, no, before we cut away, the camera zooms in on the blanket. Instead of animating the shot, they thought, let's just animate the camera and we'll zoom in.
So you're thinking that by zooming in, they were faking the animation.
Exactly.
Right. But instead of really seeing it all play out, we cut to the outside where the truck of caged humans is driving by. And Urko is now getting ready to start the demonstration for a very curious crowd.
Look, humanoid.
What will I do with them?
What is Urko doing?
He's starting the demonstration.
Then we cut back inside where Lago is all tied up. And of course, we then see Bill, Jeff, and Judy. And Judy is dressed in the pilot's uniform. And she asks,
How do I look?
The pillows help, all right. I think you'll fool them.
We'll wait until you're in the air. Then we'll go to work.
Once again, I'm not necessarily sure what Bill means by then we'll go to work. I think they're still keeping it hidden, which is good. It's still got a little mystery happening. But what I want to know is, what does Jeff mean when he says the pillows worked? Freeze frame that shot. She still looks thin. I'm assuming that they mean they put pillows in her clothing to bulk her up. But if you freeze frame that shot, she still looks like she's thin. It doesn't look like she's got any pillows inside her clothes.
All right, I am freezing the frame right now, and she is more bulky.
To the point where she's got pillows under her?
Very flat pillows. It loses her womanly shape and gives her just that bulky, stocky ape look.
I don't know. I freeze framed it when he said it, and I just wasn't buying that. I had no idea what he meant, and I don't know. You're seeing it. I'm not. Maybe some of the other listeners can, let us know what they think. But to me, I know what they were going for, but to me, it just looked like Judy.
Yeah, no, she's pretty bulky in this shot.
Didn't look that way to me. We then cut to a radio, and someone calls to the pilot.
Pilot, man your plane. Pilot, man your plane.
And Judy is off. We now cut to Urko, and he's addressing the orangutans.
And what you're about to see will change the course of the history of ape-kind.
I just really want to pull Urko aside at this point and say, excuse me, I think you're exaggerating a little. It's just a net that's going to capture 2 people.
Yeah, but he's got high hopes for capturing those 2 people.
I want to know why they never thought, maybe we could mount some guns on these planes.
Well, that's phase 2. Phase 1, let's just get one in the air.
Right, it just seems so obvious. And at this point, the hangar doors are opened and the plane is pulled out by a jeep. And Bill and Jeff are confident that Judy is going to pull this off.
I think she's going to make it. Good. We better get back to the train. I think we've got a good chance.
Now, at this point, Judy is in the Jeep being escorted by an ape driver. You would think the ape driver would say, Lago, you look a whole lot different with that bright red lipstick.
Well, I think she's got a scarf over her face. It's very, very hard to tell because it's a long shot, and I thought the same thing. But as I thought about it and as I looked at it, I was thinking, how airplane pilots sometimes in movies will wear those scarves over their face? I thought maybe she was covering most of her face.
Yeah, there is a shot I'm looking at right now. It's a long shot, so you can't really tell. Still, Judy is still going to be a lot smaller than Lago. And
not with those pillows.
I mean, shorter. You're just going to know a humanoid from an ape.
The important thing here is we're about to learn that Bill and Jeff are definitely not Pete and Alan, because we cut back to the pilot and evidently Bill and Jeff have no idea how to tie a knot because Lago, without even struggling, is getting free of the ropes. And we cut to commercial. It's kind of weird. I would figure there'd be a little struggle or something, but I guess that would cost too much to animate.
Well, in my DVD, Bill had asked Lago, "Hey, can you hold on to this rope? Thanks." He never really tied it.
Couldn't they have at least put in some noises like, like he was struggling? That's my acting ability, by the way.
That was very good. All right, we fade to black and roll into the next commercial.
It's the world's greatest superhero collection, featuring Batman and the other half of the dynamic duo, Robin. The Hulk, that green superhero, he's fully posable. Falcon, the winged black superhero. Shazam and Iron Man. The world's greatest superheroes collection. Each superhero action figure sold separately from Mego.
Okay, so now that's the world's greatest superhero collection, and once again, we're going to have to post this commercial for everybody to watch so they really kind of get what we were looking at. And I want to now reference back to earlier on in the show where you said that this commercial would never be able to get made today, and I want you to explain that.
It's a commercial advertising superhero dolls for DC Comics and Marvel Comics. Well, that right there would never be done today.
I didn't even notice that. You're right, because we got Batman and we got Iron Man.
And the Hulk and Robin.
Right, I didn't even notice that. Good eye.
But that's not even really what I'm referencing in the big picture.
Yeah, I thought you might have been referencing something else.
They introduce Batman, Robin, Hulk, the green superhero, and Falcon, the winged black superhero. Why go there? Why clarify him as the winged black superhero? They didn't say, here's Batman, the caped white superhero.
I think the only reason they may have thought it was okay is because they referenced the Hulk as the green superhero.
All right, so why not go with Robin, the Caucasian white boy? I think between just the comic company lines and clarifying the colors, I just think you would have several groups on them going, hey, you know what? Why? Why do that?
We should be teaching kids that everybody's the same, and therefore just say Batman, Robin, Hulk, Falcon.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to point this out, because I used to love my Falcon action figure when I was a kid. And it wasn't really until I saw this commercial when they said a black superhero, and I looked at the Falcon, it's like, oh yeah, he is black. I do remember saying that, because to me, he was just an awesome super friend. And that's one of the reasons why I picked out this commercial.
Wrong franchise, by the way. Falcon is Marvel.
What did I say?
You said Super Friends, that would be DC.
Well, I mean in the generic term, Super Friends. So that's one of the reasons why I picked this commercial to play, just because there's just so much to this that I wanted to point out, and the fact that they had to differentiate the colors.
Okay, so let's get back to the show. And we come back up on Urko, who is ready to start the demonstration.
I am about to give the order to begin. At the conclusion of this demonstration, I believe Dr. Zayas will have an important announcement.
It's too late. Nobody can stop it now.
At this point, there's just so much going on, and it's kind of exciting. It's going to be really kind of hard to break down, but basically, Urko's getting ready to begin. Zero's starting to get a little bit worried. Judy closes the cockpit to get ready to begin. The pilot is finishing untying his bindings. It's all kind of getting exciting. Then we see Jeff and Bill. They're in the train for whatever reason, because we still don't know why, and we can just start to see everything in this action just starting to really unfold, and this is where the episode starts to get really good, because all of a sudden, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of threads now being tied together.
Right, and there's a lot of answers to questions, like we're going to find out what Jeff and Bill are doing with the train, and just everything's just going to unfold now.
I was very curious as to what Judy's plan was. It would have been really funny if the plane just flew off and kept on going.
Well, the weird thing is that's what I expected.
I just cut back to Urko going, what's happening? Didn't someone get the memo? You're coming back, right, Lago? Lago?
I gotta tell you something. That's truly what I expected. I didn't see it as going any other way. To me, what I thought was that Jeff and Bill were going to use the train to save the humanoids, and they were going to take the train out with the humanoids, and just so everybody knows, that's not what happens. And Judy was just going to fly off in the plane. But that would have probably been pretty dull, and so they decided to go another way.
But would have been really funny.
It would have been, but then they would have had 10 more minutes of time to fill.
I would have just had a great time watching Urko's face going, wait a minute, what was supposed to happen?
All right, so let's go really quickly through what happens here. So Urko gives the order for Lago to start his engine, which Judy, who's in the plane, does. And it doesn't start at first. And I'm not necessarily sure why this happens. I guess it's probably just to build some tension, because the next time she tries, it's going to start right up.
Right.
Lago tries to use the radio to warn Urko, because he's now fully untied, but he notices the wires have been cut, so he can't. Then we cut back to Judy. Now, this is the second time she tries to start it up, and it starts right back up. We then cut to Bill and Jeff as they get ready to start the train for whatever they're up to. The plane moves forward and takes off. I hope people can follow this, because it all goes really fast. And the apes from the crowd at this point are impressed, and they start to yell stuff like, "Look, it's awesome."
Look! It's awesome! This could mean the end of civilized warfare!
Why, it's against the laws of nature.
So I like what they have to say.
Well, a few of them are yelling out, it's against human nature, so there's a lot of apes there that are not really on board with this.
Yeah, that was probably the one line that I didn't like, because it's such a cliche that it's against the law of nature. And one of the apes even says,
if the ape were meant to fly, he would have been born with wings.
I don't know when that saying came about, but to me, I've heard that so many times. If humans were meant to fly, they would have been born with wings. That to hear it here, it was one of those groan moments. It was like the one moment I wish they'd cut out of the episode.
Honestly, in my DVD, that line's been cut.
Man, you got better DVDs than me. Urko then orders the release of the humanoids, and they are let out of their cages to become targets.
Now, I love this part right here. This is where the true comedy of the episode comes in. This is one of the funniest moments in the whole series, where Urko's calling out to Lago on his cell phone walkie-talkie.
General Urko to Wing Commander Lago. Make your approach.
I can't.
Why can't you?
Because I'm here.
Impossible. Then who?
So our listeners can really only hear this. They can't really see anything. So why don't you explain to them why this is so funny?
Because Lago is just standing very nonchalantly behind Urko, and he says his line, I can't make the approach because I'm standing right behind you.
Right, Lago's literally standing right behind Urko. And all I'm thinking about is, you can't tell that he's not answering over the walkie-talkie, that he's standing behind you? He doesn't sound like he's coming over a walkie-talkie. He sounds like he's coming from behind you.
This is kind of Lago's responsibility. Why is he standing there like he's waiting for a train?
Right, yeah, why didn't he, step in front of him and answer it?
Yeah, say, hey guys, emergency, code 3, everyone to their stations, something. I expected Urko to turn around and just shoot him in the head.
Right.
Just for being so stupid.
And then, of course, when Urko notices that Lago is behind him, they then look up at the plane, and Judy does this flyby, forcing some of the apes to dive to the ground, including Urko, who, what does he do? He shakes his fist into the air.
Well, you say it like he's doing it maniacally, but he's doing it in a very slow wave. He's shaking his fist extremely slowly at this renegade plane.
And then we cut to Cornelius, and he says,
"It must be Blue Eyes."
And once again, they're assuming it's Blue Eyes. It's Judy up there. It's not Blue Eyes. Give her some credit.
Yeah, once again, I think when they say Blue Eyes, that could mean any one of the three.
I think that, Blue Eyes is Blue Eyes. I want to hear Jeff and Judy get some credit. I have a feeling Judy's going to start getting more credit than Jeff because Judy's pretty much the smart one in the group at this point. So Jeff starts the train moving forward. After all this, he finally starts the train moving forward, and we still have no idea why. And the train starts speeding along, gaining speed. And Jeff and Bill, for some reason, jump out of the train and hide. And I was kind of like, what's going on here? Because I thought they were going to maybe use the train to go get the humanoids, but they get it up to a certain speed and they jump. And now I'm like, ooh, what's this about? Until the train rams into the side of the hangar, destroying everything in its path, including all the planes that are being built. And this is where we understand the plan. Their idea was to take the train, ram it into all the planes so they'd be so destroyed beyond recognition that the apes wouldn't be able to continue building them. They'd have no idea how to finish these planes because they'd be destroyed beyond recognition.
And plus, Judy has the only working plane, so now they got nothing.
Right, exactly. And did you notice that after they hit the planes, the endless debris that falls from the sky?
Yeah.
It goes on forever.
It's raining debris, and they do use that awesome fire graphic. I think that's one of the strong points of this series is their fire. They really know how to animate fire.
Right, and actually this crash is pretty cool. I said that the animation and the drawings are getting lazier and lazier. I did kind of like everything that was going on here during this crash. And of course, after this whole crash and destruction of the planes is noticed by Jeff and Bill, Jeff says,
"They'll never be able to build another plane there."
Or any place else, I hope. Come on, the truck.
So they've accomplished what they were there to accomplish. Now they need to get out. We cut to Urko, who's staring at the hangar, which he calls a factory, wondering what happened.
The factory? What happened? We will have to start again.
But you don't understand, General. Without the original sky vehicle to study, we are lost.
Someone will pay for this outrage, Lycus. You'll see.
And so Lycus just basically said what we said earlier, that, they're kind of going to be lost now. Without these planes or the main plane to use as a blueprint, they're going to be lost. They're not going to be able to rebuild them, and their plans are pretty much not going to happen. And I love the fact that Urko, once again, he's not going to take this. He's a stronger character, and somebody will pay. Then we go to Jeff and Bill, and they're filling up the cage truck. I don't really know what to call this. It's like a flatbed truck with a cage on the back. And they're filling it up with the humans in order to escape.
Wait a minute, first, Bill's calling to the humans saying, all right, guys, get over here. Come on, let's go. And they're just standing there. Like they don't trust him. So they have got two options. They can go with this human that can speak, or they can stay there with the apes who want to kill them. And they're siding with the apes.
But the fact that they don't go at first kind of reinforces what you were saying earlier when I asked, did they go out and hunt these humans down? And you said they already had them there. Because if they had gone with them right away, then we would have assumed that they knew Jeff and Bill. And then the assumption would have been that they, were the humanoids from the caves that Jeff and Bill were staying at. Then it would have only made sense to me that Urko then would have sent out his patrols to go hunt these humanoids down, which seemed like it would have been a waste of time when they could just use these dummies, as we talked about earlier. But by having them not actually recognize Bill and Jeff, then they're different humanoids. And because they're different humanoids, then maybe they were humanoids that have been captured for a long time, that Urko just happened to have them in some prison cell somewhere, and he didn't have to go hunting for any humanoids.
I'm just thinking it's a human. We're gonna trust a human more than we're gonna trust apes who have been known to kill the people like us.
Right, and I totally understand what you're saying. I just thought that, it did seem to have a purpose for them not to go with them right away. Plus, it gave them like 10 more seconds of padding. And you know how this show loves to pad.
I would like to maybe pad it with the humanoids walking slowly to him, but they're standing with their arms folded like, I dare you to help us. I dare you.
Then something interesting happens because Urko notices that the humanoids are escaping with Bill and Jeff, and he orders his soldiers to go after them. But as we see the chase happening, we only see Urko and his driver chasing after Bill and Jeff and the humanoids. We never see any other apes.
But we already know that this encounter only has 3 soldiers. So how many people did you expect to be following him?
Well, it's not the encampment anymore. They're at the demonstration. I expected there to be a lot of guards there.
There are a lot of guards there. I don't know where they came from.
But none of them are chasing after Jeff and Phil.
If you were one of those soldiers and Urko said to do something, would you do it? Or would you think, you don't have a good track record anymore, Urko, so I'm good where I am?
I don't know. It seems like in past episodes, Urko's men seem to be pretty loyal to Urko. So I would have figured to see that. And then there might be listeners thinking, well, maybe they just didn't show those shots. So now I'm going to prove that there were just 2 apes, Urko and his driver, chasing after Bill and Jeff and the humanoids. Because what happens next? Judy swoops down and drops the net onto Urko and his driver, causing Urko's Hitlermobile or Rolls Royce to crash into a building, and Bill, Jeff, and the humanoids get away. And if there were other gorillas chasing after Bill, Jeff, and the humanoids, then it wouldn't have mattered that Urko's car crashed, because the other gorillas would continue chasing after them. But nope, Urko's down, Urko's driver's down, Bill, Jeff, and the humanoids get away.
I find it awesome that Judy can spin a web any size and catches apes just like flies. Watch out. Here comes the spider, Judy.
Right. So anyway, Bill and Jeff and the humanoids get away, and we cut to Zira and Cornelius as they watch on, and Zira asks,
Was it Blue Eyes? Could you see?
Too much confusion. But who else could it have been?
No one else, Cornelius. No one else at all.
How about Jeff or Judy? Once again, I know you have a reason for this, but I want them to stop giving all the credit to Blue Eyes.
Okay, I'll just stop repeating my point, which is extremely valid.
I want to hear them give credit to all 3 of them. So now, Zaius, we cut to Zaius, and he's making a speech to the other apes.
My fellow citizens.
What could he?
Shh. Never have I seen a more disgraceful event than this.
Here.
General Urko's behavior today shows total incompetence to command.
Tell him, Dr. Zaius.
That's the way.
I, for one, recommend that a thorough investigation be made as to his ability to lead our military forces.
We're with you, Zaius.
Here's what I was talking about earlier when I said that your idea of Zaius now going after Urko happens at the end of this episode. Because I'm hoping that if this relationship continues in the way it's going, that what Zaius just said here is the first step to showing Zaius saying, I've got to get Urko out of the military forces. He can no longer lead. And we're going to start to see this bigger relationship growing in further episodes. Urko trying to take over the government and Zaius trying to get him out of the military.
Right, and when I first said that, I forgot that he does make that speech, which is why later on I said, oh, wait a minute, there is a hint of that at the end of this episode. And I really hope that becomes a driving force in the next, 5 episodes?
I hope so. And I don't even think that this is a hint, though, to be honest. I think it's straight on out. It's right in your face.
Well, I mean, I hinted at it earlier on in the show.
Okay.
Yeah, this is right here. We don't even need cue cards for this.
Okay, and then we go to a shot that I wish we didn't have.
I love this shot.
Yeah, but we've been seeing Urko as this strong character throughout this whole entire piece. To then go to a shot of Urko in his car covered with a net. Yeah, he's vowing revenge, but he just looks like, this helpless gorilla in this net.
It almost looks like he's regressing to baby Urko.
But he does vow revenge, so let's hope that this all leads to something.
Now, what Urko says is,
I will be revenged for this. I swear it.
Does he mean that he's going to exact revenge, or his men will exact revenge?
His 2 men?
Yeah.
Because nobody's helping him. They're not even helping him out of the car.
Would you?
No, I think we'd be safer if he's in the net.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we didn't go chase after Jeff Bill and the humanoids. He's going to be mad.
Yeah, I just found it odd that he says, I will be revenged for this, as opposed to, I will avenge this act, saying that I will come after you, and I will exact revenge.
So now we cut to Judy, and she's flying away. And as she gets further and further away, nearer to their encampment or their cave or wherever they're going to hide this thing, she comes in for a perfect landing, which seems to take absolutely forever.
Yeah, but Jeff and Bill, they don't even have confidence in this plane.
Here she comes.
I hope that old crate holds together.
But she gives it that perfect landing. And why wouldn't they think that it would hold up, considering the fact that they've already seen it land once?
Yeah, and they've seen what it can do. I don't know, I think once again it's building tension.
Right. Then we cut into Zaius' office, because I will admit this, the ending does seem to kind of go on forever. And we cut into Zaius' office, and Zaius is with Cornelius and Zira for some reason for the first time in this episode. And Zaius, he, like Cornelius and Zira, he thinks he knows who it must have been who flew the plane out.
It must have been Blue Eyes. Who else could have stolen the skycraft?
Dr. Zaius, if Lago can learn to fly, anyone can.
Blue Eyes may have a certain crude intelligence, but remember, he is still only a humanoid.
Cornelius, Zira, I warn you. It is a dangerous game you are playing. If you lose, I will not be able to help.
Of course, this kind of makes sense that Zaius says Blue Eyes, because Zaius still has no idea this far into the show that Jeff and Judy exist. So I'll give Zaius this. I do have one question to ask, though, because as Zira and Cornelius are kind of, talking about Blue Eyes by saying that he has a certain kind of crude intelligence, but remember, he's still a humanoid, I think they're trying to downplay Blue Eyes to Zaius.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, but Zaius then says, I warn you, it's a dangerous game you're playing. At first, I was kind of like, what does he mean by that? But now I'm thinking that maybe he's trying to say, I know what you guys are doing. I know that you're helping the humanoid, and you better be careful.
That's exactly what he's telling them.
I'm not really sure how he knows that, but maybe there's little hints, and Zaius is a little bit smarter than I thought.
Well, they don't call him Dr. Zaius for nothing. I think he's putting together all these dots. He knows what's going on. He understands that they have connections with Blue Eyes, and they've been helping him, and he's just now telling them, if you lose, I won't be able to help you. So that's pretty loaded right there.
Right. But it's another scene that I felt was probably kind of not needed, although I guess it does add to the building of the characters that has been present in this episode. We had a lot of building of Urko and Zaius' relationship. I guess this is kind of building a new part to Zaius' relationship with Cornelius and Zira that we're going to see more of later on. So I guess it does work.
He's always called them his children. So this is just this is a very deep scene once we start talking about it like this. That, hey, I want to help you, but if you keep on going down this path and helping out these talking humanoids, or this humanoid, the one, because he only knows about Blue Eyes, I can't help you and you're on your own. It's very Obi-Wan Kenobi.
So now we cut to Bill, Jeff, and Judy, and they've parked the plane in a cave, and Jeff is confident that it's safe there. But we're going to get to that in a couple of minutes.
I think our one-plane Air Force is safe here.
One plane is more than the others have.
There's only a quarter of a tank of gas left.
Someday that might be just enough.
Wouldn't that be strange?
What, Judy?
If this old relic of the past somehow helped us get back home.
Did you hear what Judy said? Because what she said was kind of strange. How is this airplane going to help them get home?
Yeah, once again, I don't think she's really thinking it through. But it does get you thinking that, hey, I think they have some bigger plans now, and they're really starting to see the end game here, and that if they don't start trying to put together a plan to get back to their time, that it's never going to happen.
What possible plans could they have that's going to allow this old relic of the past get them home? How are they going to make this plane time travel to get them home? It just doesn't make sense to me. I'm not getting it. It just seemed kind of an odd statement that I hope they build on in future episodes.
I think it's just a statement of hope.
It feels to me almost like that parking meter at the end of the Unearthly Prophecy episode, where the parking meter is just sitting there and the expired flag comes up and you have no idea what that means, and then we never go back to it.
Well, that was very ambiguous. This is clear cut.
See, I don't think it is. I just don't understand. It's not like a DeLorean or anything. It's not going to travel through time.
Yeah, but you can see her intention. It's a flying machine, just like our ship that got us here. Somehow maybe we can get caught up in that vortex again, even though that was outer space.
I think you're reaching. You're always telling me that I'm reaching, but I think you're reaching here.
No, I don't think I'm reaching. I think Judy is reaching. And I'm explaining to you what I think what her intention is.
Right. And then we cut to this interesting shot, because after they park the plane, Jeff says that he's confident that it'll be safe there. Like, nobody's ever going to find it there. But we cut to the outside of the cave, where the tail of the plane is in perfect view. Like, somebody with binoculars from 100 miles away would see this tail of this plane. How is it safe there? They need to bring that up to Ice Mountain.
If they extended this episode by another 10 seconds, they would see that Judy got in and pulled it another 20 feet forward.
Something would have to happen, because that's not very well hidden. Especially, we know that the apes can find needles in haystacks because they found that laser drill in that past episode, and that was really well buried.
We'll know on the next episode.
I hope we know in the next episode.
All right, Mark, now that we're done with the episode, has your opinion changed at all? Do you like it as much as you did in the beginning?
Yeah, I still have to admit that I do like this episode. As I mentioned earlier, I like the progression of the relationship between Urko and Zaius a lot. Their whole verbal back and forth. I just hope it continues to build as the episodes continue, because I think that it could really add a lot to the show as a whole and really fill it out with better characters and more interesting relationships, especially between two of the bad guys. You know, I think that that's really kind of cool, and I really like that. I also really like the stuff with the airplane. I know we picked it apart with a lot of stuff that didn't make sense. You know, why wasn't the plane equipped with guns so Urko's plans would make more sense and seem a little bit more threatening? But then I also understand that it's a kid's show, and maybe they didn't want to go there, or maybe they weren't allowed to go there, so I can kind of give it a pass. But I think it would have been more interesting if they had had guns, because the net does unfortunately weaken the threat that Urko was going to use against Zaius. But it being a kid's show, sometimes you got to give things a pass and just, not think too much and just kind of enjoy it. Also, I really do like Urko here. I like how he's no longer only about destroying the humanoids, but he also wants to overthrow Zaius and take over the government and maybe the planet. I think that this is a better Urko. I think it's a stronger Urko, and I hope that this continues as the episodes go by as well, because I think that will add to a more interesting show. I will admit that I wish the scripts were smarter, and if the show was any longer, like an hour, it probably wouldn't work. I think that at 20 minutes, it's just perfect, because it doesn't give you a chance to question things. Just as the show's starting to get to the point where you would, it's over. And so at that 20-minute length, it's perfect. If they tried to extend it to an hour, or I guess it would be 50 minutes like the live action, I don't think the show would work at all. But at 20 minutes, I'm enjoying it. I enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed the action of the ending. It was nonstop. And as long as you don't think too much and just sit back, relax, and say, I just want to have a good time, I think everybody's going to enjoy this episode. We may have ruined it a little bit for them, because now we've given them everything to think about, but maybe they should watch the episode first, although it's too late if they've already listened to the podcast. Sorry.
All right, you pretty much said everything that I had thought. And I just really love this maniacal Urko who is just being blinded by extreme power. Absolute power now is the only thing that matters to him. And he's going to stop at nothing, not even common sense, to get it. All right, now, with that, let's hear from our apes with Listen to the Apes. All right, Mark, we got another iTunes review. And guess how many stars accompanied this review?
1?
No.
2?
No.
3?
No.
25?
No.
5.
5. It's a 5-star review from the Mike Spring.
Did you say the Mike Spring?
The Mike Spring. Not just any Mike Spring, but the Mike Spring.
Cool.
Yeah. And the subject line reads, a very enjoyable show. So already, I've got a good feeling about this. The Mike Spring writes, "This is a fun show to listen to. It's a nice episode-by-episode breakdown of the classic Planet of the Apes TV series. The hosts are friendly and don't take the show too seriously."
I take it very seriously.
I take the fun very seriously. But they're also clearly fans, so their affection is obvious. It's a nice balance and is great listening for any Planet of the Apes fan. Well, thank you very much, the Mike Spring. We really appreciate that.
Right now, is his first name his middle name Mike, and last name Spring?
I think he wrote his last name first, so it's Mike Spring the.
Because I want to know who to thank. Do I thank Do I thank Mike? Or do I thank Spring?
You know what? He wrote it as the Mike Spring, so let's give the man that respect, okay?
So thank you, the Mike Spring.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate that, and we appreciate that you appreciate the old TV series, the classic TV series. And that's the whole point of this whole podcast series, is that these shows that we have so much fun going into are never forgotten. So everyone, to all you ape fans, please keep those iTunes reviews coming. All right, Mark, let's wrap this show up now by thanking everyone for coming back to this week's Talking Apes TV. And as always, we want to give a huge thanks to Angela Rushmere, who's been doing so much great work on our Facebook page. And of course, we want to thank Rob Dellinger, who composed all of the original jingles you'll hear on Talking Apes TV. And of course, please check out Rob's work on his website, robdellinger.com. That's ROBDEHLINGER. That's also where you can find his upcoming tour dates for his swing band, Stompy Jones. And if you do see him in concert, you gotta yell out, "Yabba Dabba Urko!" And you know what? If he hears you, he will sing it. And of course, we've always got to thank my sweetie wife, Sarah, who posts the show every week. Now, if you want to contact us, you can do so in the future by emailing us at apestv@skywalkingthroughneverland.com. You can tweet at us at TalkingApesTV, and you can Facebook us, facebook.com/TalkingApesTV. And if you haven't already liked us, please like us on Facebook. We're almost to 500. We need a couple of more, so please encourage your friends and other ape fans who may not know about Talking Apes TV and would love to hear a show about the classic series. There's tons of Apes fans out there, and, well, we can't do it alone. We need your help, fans. So please share the show if you could. That would really be so much appreciated. And then if we see you in person, you will get one of our exclusive Talking Apes TV buttons. I brought those to our last Skywalking Through Neverland meetup, and people grabbed those. They loved them. And if you haven't already, please join me and Sarah on our Star Wars Disney podcast, Skywalking Through Neverland. So, until next time, this is Richard.
This is Mark.
And we leave you with a preview of the next episode in the Return to the Planet of the Apes series, Trail to the Unknown. Now go ape.
Scoundrels, thieves, traitors! That's who it was. Traitors to Ape Klein who stole my aircraft. Never have I been so humiliated. And to think, there I was on the brink of total power. I want the aircraft returned, do you understand? I demand it be recaptured at once!
We're doing our best, sir.
Your best isn't good enough. Or else, how do you explain allowing the plane to be stolen from under your noses in the first place?
We're narrowing down our list of suspects, General Urko.
To me, you're all suspects! How do I know it wasn't one of you who betrayed me? This entire mess smacks of an inside job. After all, the existence of the airplane was a closely guarded military secret, unknown to anyone on the outside.
Well, someone on the outside must have known about it, sir.
I want an immediate review of all security procedures. I will give a reward of 1,000 pieces of simian silver to the patriotic ape who exposes the guilty party.
Thank you once again for listening to Talking Apes TV. You can help support Talking Apes TV by posting about us on Facebook, Twitter, or just tell another Planet of the Apes fan. We would also appreciate a 5-star review on iTunes. A link to our iTunes page can be found at skywalkingthroughneverland.com. Talking Apes TV was created by Richard Wolosky and Marco Gushewitz, graphic design by Sarah Wolosky. Talking Apes TV is not affiliated with 20th Century Fox or the CBS network. All names, sounds, or related items of Planet of the Apes are registered registered, trademarked, and copyright 20th Century Fox and the respected trademark and copyright holders. All rights reserved. Talking Apes TV is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Hey Hey Entertainment, copyright 2015. All rights reserved. No part of this show may be repurposed, reproduced, redistributed, or rebroadcast without the written permission of Hey Hey Entertainment.